I think at least Karp has to understand on earnings calls. Dude, throw all this philosophical stuff out the window. Just focus on the stock.
Holy smokers, we are here.
Woo! This ain't no jokers.
This ain't no jokers. Interviewing Jeremy, Financial Education. First of all, thank you for letting us into your house.
Oh, absolutely.
This is absolutely one of the most beautiful houses I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, I appreciate it.
The view in the back is crazy. Yes, thank you for having us. First question I want to start off with is Vegas. Why Vegas? How do you feel about Vegas? How long have you been here? And I guess, do you enjoy the culture of like gambling and nightlife in this city?
Yeah. So Vegas, holy smokes, man. What a way to start. I thought we were going to start with the markets and Palantir, but no, we're starting in Vegas. All right. So, the first time I came to Vegas, it was 2009. I stayed at the Rio, just, I think I was 19 years old with my brother and my mom, actually. And then I came back a second time. This was in 2011 with my girlfriend, who ended up becoming my wife. And we drove to see one of my brother's friends who lived in Henderson, and I was just blown away by like how nice the community was in the Green Valley Ranch area and whatnot.
Right.
Then I got back and I just like loved the vibes of like that whole area specifically, and like being relatively close to Strip. So then when I got back to Arizona, I was looking into it and I was like, wait, they have no state income tax? And that was even like a new thought for me at that time. Because I was like 22 years old. And I was like, wait, so literally you don't have to pay any state income tax. That's cool. So I was trying to plot to move out here for years before I actually did it. And then 2015 came after I left Quick Trip and whatnot, which was 2014. I moved out here and been out here ever since and been very happy. And it's been crazy to see how much it's grown. We have like a little mini finance hub here because, we got a lot of the biggest finance YouTubers in the world that all live here in Vegas, which is just crazy, man. So, and obviously the city's always growing and will continue to grow. And you get a lot of people that move out here from LA who are trying to like escape LA, but they have a lot of money, so they move out to Vegas. But anyways, it's I love living here.
Was there a reason for Vegas outside of like Texas and Florida that also don't have the state income tax, or was it just because you were here first?
I liked what I saw in Vegas, and I hadn't really gone to many other places. And on top of that, we have a lot of family that lived on the West Coast, Arizona specifically. So 4-hour car ride to Phoenix, 4-hour car ride to LA. You're in a pretty good situation. You're a 45-minute flight from San Francisco. So, for me, it was just a really good spot. So,
do you gamble a lot?
A little bit, not too much. And when I do, it's low money. Let's put it that way. It's, like if I go play poker, it might be for like a few $100 or something like that.
Now, obviously, you've made some money in your life. So is it kind of like a psychological thing where you're like, I know how to make money. I do my own thing, so I don't want to just throw it away in gambling?
Yeah, a little bit. I love the competitive aspect, especially of poker. Casino games I don't really enjoy too much unless I'm like there with people that are not from Vegas and they're like, oh, I want to play craps or I want to do this or whatever.
It's easy money.
But yeah, poker's fun because it's competitive and it's very much symbolizes life a little bit in terms of, math is important in poker. Also, judgment's important, judging other people's character and kind of are they tricking you and bluffing and things like that. And then luck plays a part in it just like it does in life as well. So anyways, yeah.
Right. Okay, so let's get into a little bit of YouTube. You've built up an audience, over 700,000 people. Obviously, people very care about you. We were joking. They click on your thumbnails and you don't say anything other than a angry face because it's green or red, or a nice face because it's green. And it's interesting to see someone kind of just pioneer themselves into the algorithm, into the platform, just doing it that way. Yeah. I guess my first question on YouTube is, why do you think you have a following? Why do you think people watch you every day?
Yeah, I think there's probably a few reasons. I think consistency probably is one. Like, I'm going to be there. If something crazy happens in the market or regardless, I'm going to be there to give my 2 cents on it. If the Nasdaq's down 3% tomorrow, I'm going to give my 2 cents on that. If one of my stocks is up or down huge, I'm going to probably give my 2 cents on that. So I think consistency matters. I think I built up a pretty large following over time by just giving my opinion real and just, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I accept it. Yep. It is what it is. All the videos in the history of my channel are up. It's not like I'm trying to hide and be like, oh, that stock didn't work out. It's just, it is
you
what
publicly
it is.
Acknowledge the ones you got wrong and the ones you also got right.
Yeah. And I think people appreciate that. I think that matters in a meaningful way. And,
do you think too many people on YouTube expect someone who's talking about a stock to always be right on that stock? Because it's like, all right, you made a video about a stock. Let's say you got it wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think there's an extreme amount of backlash from someone who got something wrong, even though in life it's always 50-50?
Yeah, I think only people that don't know that much about the market maybe have that expectations. I think most people that have been in the market a while experience that. I think they understand, like, you know, I don't care who you are, Warren Buffett or Ray Dalio, it doesn't matter. Like, everybody gets stocks wrong.
Yep.
They sell stocks for losses. It's part of the game. It's just important that over a, let's say, a 10-year span, you get a lot more right than wrong. And those ones you get right, if you get some
big ones right,
massive ones, that changes your entire life.
Now, when you talk about consistency and always being there, can you talk a little bit about the work ethic for some of the upcoming financial YouTubers? In terms of what it means to be consistent, like something big is happening in the market. Obviously, you have something to talk about because content is there. Yeah. But to have the willingness to get up and legitimately create a meaningful piece of content every single time in a dynamic market, is it just like the hustle? Is it just the grind? What's the thing that gets you to want to show up and make that content?
Yeah, I just know there's a lot of people that are looking for it and want it. Especially for me nowadays, you know, maybe years ago it was a different reason, but nowadays it's like, I feel like I'm letting people down if I don't. And I really thoroughly enjoy it. I'm sure someday I won't enjoy it anymore and I'll be like, oh, I don't want to make a YouTube video today. But as of right now, at least I actually thoroughly enjoy it. And I'll tell you this market has brought probably the best out of me because of how bad it's been. And a lot of YouTubers obviously left the platform that were in the finance community. And I feel like I'm more needed in this sort of market versus like a high flying market. Right. Because, you know, in a high flying market, it's all about the next 10x stock and things like that. In this sort of market, you've got to really be able to break things down in a way that makes sense. So
that's a really good point. Like in the bearish market, trying to make calls or plays, it's incredibly more challenging than in 2021 when anything you buy, everything goes up. Yeah. And the people who did that, I mean, lots of them, it's kind of why I'm happy I got in towards the end of the bear market. They're all kind of gone. Yeah. Because they have nothing to talk about anymore because what they were saying just happened to go up. Yep. So do you think it's easier if someone's watching this and wants to be a financial YouTuber to start now in the bear market? Even if the algorithm's not super friendly on YouTube for finance because it's not a bull market? Oh, for sure. Absolutely. No doubt. I mean, you know, if that's something you really want to do, and not everybody wants to do it. That's the thing. In respect, you know, not everybody has to do it. Like there's a lot of people that have opinions on the market and don't want to do it, and that's fine, you know. Right. But yeah, in terms of like if anybody ever really actually wants to go after it, yeah, it doesn't matter what type of market it is. But I would say if you're going to start in one, no different than the same thing I'll say if there's an investor getting in the market. I would much rather have somebody get in the market in a tough market than a high flying market, because you're going to get into bad habits. You come into a market that everything's just going up and you're putting in not very much work and you're making money. You're going to assume that's just it's what easy. I do. Yeah. Right. You know, when I got started at the end of 2008 and into 2009, you know, I got started in the right habits of like reading 10Ks, listening to conference calls. And back then they used to send me the actual annual reports and the 10Qs. I would like request it on the website and they would send me physical documents. And I used to have this bookshelf, and my wife could tell you about it. I used to have this bookshelf and you walk in, it's just full of annual reports and stuff like that, like physical ones. Like I remember like, who was it? I think it was like Siemens, the company out of Europe, which is kind of like the European GE. Their annual report was like this big, and some companies had it so nice. But anyways, I think I probably got way off subject there. But great. It's getting into good habits early on, doing the right research, and then that carries you through for, you know, potentially decades. One more question I want to ask about YouTube. So how do you think about the platform? I want to get your thoughts as one of the biggest creators on it. 2 billion active users a month. Doesn't look like it's stopping. Even with TikTok rising, it's still pretty big, second largest search engine in the world. And obviously video is a growing format that more and more people are going to consume. Is there any advice you have or any thoughts you have on the algorithmic nature of that platform? Like you said, consistency, work ethic, content's got to be good. That's amazing. Yep. Is there anything you're thinking about, tactical advice you can give to someone to work within that algorithm? Because that's a big part of the game. Yeah, I think a lot of times people overthink it. At the end of the day, if you were putting out consistently good content, people will find you over time. I'll give you a really good example of a channel I've come across in the past, I would say 6 to 9 months, that I really like a lot. His channel's name's Maverick of Wall Street. This guy was putting out videos for the longest time that would get 300 views, 500 views, 1,000 views, but the content was really good. Right. I watch him religiously, like every single night pretty much. If he comes out with a video, he's sometimes a little inconsistent, but he just kept putting in the work, and over time, you know, people are going to come back and keep watching. And then the thing with YouTube is if more people are watching one channel, it's going to get pushed to more people that like that sort of content. Right.
So let's say it's in the stock market space. If 500 people start watching this, it's going to push it against more people that like stock market stuff, and then more. And as it, the numbers
compounding.
Yes, it just kind of keeps getting pushed. So I think that's the biggest thing is putting out good content. It will get discovered. I've never seen it where I'm like, I come across somebody's content, I'm like, that's really good, but they're doing it for 2 years and it doesn't work out.
Right.
So
it's a long-term game on this.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Tesla. How'd you get it right?
Tesla. Woo-wee. Well, first off, I'm thankful I got it right because that's one that could have went wrong on many ways. It wasn't necessarily the safest stock when I got in that. I got in that stock in 2018, 2019. And that was a very scary time for Tesla. That was a moment where people were talking about it's going to zero.
Yeah.
They were losing a fortune. Their cash flows were in a bad place.
Going private, 420.
Yes. Elon and the SEC stuff. I mean, it was so much stuff. But I think what happened was I was just so convinced that Tesla's product was so superior that they were going to make it through that stuff. And I was so convinced that the product they were putting out was going to be extremely profitable.
Yes.
And I remember still watching Sandy Munro break down the original.
Real quick, why? Because cars don't have good margins. So why were you convinced about that?
I mean, things like the Sandy Munro when he broke down the Model 3, which was I think it was either 2018 or 2019. And I watched him go through that car. And he was explaining how like Tesla doesn't have all these extra parts that a traditional auto manufacturer has. And what they would do is like, instead of having all these knobs and buttons and things like that, they put everything just in the front screen,
right?
Which saves a massive amount of cost,
right?
And so I just looked at a company that I'm like, they're so young and they're doing things so much smarter than the traditional way. If they just keep the pedal to the metal, they're just going to keep getting a bigger and bigger lead, and they'll build into more profitable than anybody. And battery costs continue to come down over time. Right. So when you look at both those things plus high demand, which means you're likely going to be able to command premium prices. I mean, it's going to eventually your margins are going to be there and your profitability. It's just going to take a little bit of time. And I had patience. I understood that. And I think some folks maybe didn't have patience or they just couldn't see it. And that's fine as well. And
you also experienced them on the road, seeing them a lot, right?
Yeah. I mean, out here, just in the West Coast in general, right. You'd see a good amount of Teslas. And every time I'd be in Vegas, I would see more and more Model 3s. This is 2018, 2019. And, just seeing it in person and like, this is the way of the future. So, and I just didn't want to miss that. And the only regret I have is I didn't go heavier, but that's could always be said in every stock.
Stanley Druckenmiller quote, right? Like,
why didn't I buy even more? Okay, it is what it is.
Do you think it's overvalued at $950 billion?
On a short-term basis, yes. On a long-term basis, probably not. And the reason being is when you just start running their growth numbers, it doesn't take a rock scientist and you start saying, okay, their revenue can keep growing at 30% or 40% or even 25%. And their profitability is probably going to increase at a more rapid clip than their revenue is. Mm-hmm. So, if their revenue is up 25%, there's a good probability their net income is going to end up being up 30% or 35%.
Right.
And then you tack on services revenue and so many other business models they have down the road. It's hard to say it's overvalued. It's the same. I remember looking into Amazon back in 2010 probably and being like, this looks overvalued. I'm like, I really like the company. I really like the business, but look at the forward P, look at the trillion. I don't even know if they were profitable back then thinking about it. And obviously Amazon was probably, a $50 billion market cap back then. Right. It was extremely undervalued. Back then I had trouble trying to see, 5 years down the road. So,
and you think that's kind of informed you to be a more successful investor today? Like missing out on Amazon means you don't miss out on Tesla because you have a bit of a better spidey sense.
Yeah, I would say. And also Apple. Apple's another one that I was very late to the game in Apple. And I saw all these people getting iPhones and iPads. And I remember even having my first Apple device and just being like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. I think it was, I don't know,
3GS, 3 or 4 or 5?
No, it wasn't even an iPhone. It was supposed to be like an iPod, but it was the one that actually you could use
iPod
it like
Touch.
it. Yeah.
iPod Touch, right.
Yeah, where you could use it kind of like you could use a phone. And I just remember being blown away. And I felt like I kind of missed that one as well. So sometimes you just learn from that over time and realize some of these companies just have such superior products that the masses are coming for these things.
Got it. What are the top 3 stocks you are focused on right now that have your attention, that you're actively buying? Boy. I know you're buying right now, correct?
Yes, and I'm buying a lot of stocks.
So let's start with that first. Why are you buying right now?
Yeah, so the way I kind of think about it is there's a lot of stocks I feel like are very undervalued for where their valuations will go over the next 3 to 5 years. I think if you're talking about the next 3 to 5 months, it's shaky times, right? And we'll continue to be very volatile for a bit here. But there's just a lot of deals I see consistently out there. If I look, forward P is always something I look at on a And
Is that there's a reason that metric stands out to you?
I always like to think about what I think a company's profitability is going to over the next year.
Okay.
And then I also look at like 2 years out, 3 years out, and what I think this company's net income is going to 2 years out from now, 3 years out from now, 4 years out from now, right? So, I mean, there's just so many deals out there right now, in my personal opinion. You asked me kind of about some stocks. I mean, Meta comes to mind in terms of big tech. The Ford P is like 11 now, which is just a joke.
Yeah.
I mean, the cash balance that company has and the products, I mean, it's just ridiculous. Palantir have been really, looking into
that one.
Yeah. And I'm sure we're going to talk about that one. That one really has my attention. Obviously, the three kind of older dogs from the beginning of this year, still focus on those. The Chef, which is the Chef, Oatly, and Honest.
Right.
Those are kind of the three that I've added a ton of shares of this year as they went down. And I'm trying to think, other than that, there's just a few stocks here and there that I'll nibble off. Some days I'll buy 5-7 stocks. Some days I might buy 3 stocks. But Corsair is definitely fits in that category of the Chef and Honest, and those that have just been accumulating. And I'm a big believer of long term. If you look at the Russell over the past 5 years, the Russell's up something like, probably like 10 to 15% over the past 5 years.
Yep.
I don't think that's sustainable forever. Mm-hmm. I think we've gone through almost like a lost half decade in small caps because they've had so much stuff thrown at them that I don't think that's lasting. And the interesting thing is, going into this year, small caps was the only place you could really find deals.
Right.
It's no longer true.
Right.
You can find deals in mid caps and large caps now.
Yep.
So for an investor, and I hope people understand this, your game just got a lot easier if you have any sort of long-term vision. If you are really focused on the next 6 months, but if you're focused on the next 6 years, I mean, I don't want to say it's easy to pick stocks now, but it's much easier than it was when everything was double, triple the price it is today.
Right. Or even quadruple in November 2021.
Yes.
Meta. I really want to start a position in Meta. I am scared of it so this is why I'm scared of it. The TikTokification of media being recommendation engines versus the social graph. Meta has had to realize, okay, we can't rely on Jeremy's friends. We need to show Jeremy what he cares about, which means more discovery for creators because then anyone can pop into your feed. But it does mean their core algorithm is fundamentally not suited for that because it was based on the social graph. So they're playing catch up to TikTok. Yeah. Do you think them as an advertising machine is just so amazing and they're so undervalued that's what you're betting on? Or is the metaverse that thing that you think is going to be their S-curve away from the TikTokification?
Yeah, so you brought up a great point there. I think that's absolutely something serious. I think before I even go there, I think something people have to at least think about in regards to Meta is still the possibility of a ban of TikTok at some point in time. I don't think anybody's even factoring that. Let's say, the government banned it tomorrow. Meta's probably up 30% the next day. It'd be absolutely insane. I'm personally not betting on that because I don't want to risk, it's because they banned TikTok. But I think IG will get it. IG did a great job copying Snapchat stories.
Yep.
I think they're going to, I think Reels are starting to take off in a major way. And I don't think they'll kill off TikTok the same way they didn't kill off Snapchat.
Yep.
But they did hurt its long-term growth of obviously Snapchat. And I think the same thing will probably happen with TikTok. I think TikTok's just probably a bigger foe, a bigger competitor. But in terms of advertising, I mean, I don't know
10 million advertisers. They burned 28 billion last quarter. It's like,
if you have a business and you were thinking about advertising, the two places you still got to start in 2022 and 2023 is Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah.
And then you go from there. And so for that reason, I mean, they're just going to continue to pull in the dollars. Great balance sheet at that company. And the metaverse is such a big opportunity that I think people don't even understand. I think I actually understand it pretty well, but I think most people, it's hard to even fathom, like, how are they going to make money off this? And remember, when Facebook went public, people didn't even understand, like, how are they going to make money? How did they make money?
845 million monthly active users, biggest tech IPO, 40 billion ever. Yeah. No one knows how they make money.
Yeah, exactly. And, that stock went down 50% very quick after its IPO, within 4 months. So I think there's going to be a similar phenomenon happen here with Metaverse, which is so disruptive that I don't think people understand the business implications of what the Metaverse means.
And advertising in the Metaverse.
Yeah, imagine if, I can be in the Metaverse, you could be in the Metaverse, and we can be at some sort of conference that we don't have to physically go to and book plane tickets and all that stuff and meet other people and network, right? And it's almost like we're there, but we're not there. And we can talk business and build relationships and things like that. And somebody charged a conference fee to get into this thing. Maybe it's $100, a couple $100, so they make money off this. So it's very much like taking the real world stuff that we do and putting it into the metaverse, but opening up the opportunity in a much bigger way than ever possible. Imagine you're a big fitness instructor, for instance. Let's say you got 10 million followers on Instagram over the years, right? You know, for you to put together a fitness class is impossible, like a physical one, because your followers are all over the world and that's just ridiculous, right? But you could put together a virtual one in the metaverse and people feel like they're there, right? Even though they might not be there. And you're charging them, you know, $20 a session and you got 10,000 people in your class.
The scale is, but do you think people would want to put on a headset and spend that time away from their phone? Do you think there's a subset of the population that will really lean into that?
Yeah, I think over time it will be, and people will go there. I think sometimes people underestimate like technology. Like if you took us back 100 years ago, we don't have to go back 100 years, 50 years ago, and you told people almost every hour of your life, you're going to be looking at screens.
Right.
I think most people 50 years ago said, that's not a life I want to live. No way.
Yeah.
And every single human just about on this planet spends the majority of the day looking at a screen, either their phone, a tablet, computer, whatever it is, right? So I think all these people are like, oh, I'll never do that. It's like, yeah, be surprised. Just wait till 10 years from now and we'll see what you say. So, and it's a step-by-step process that happens over time. So even the smartphone, that took a while to take off. I didn't even get a smartphone until 2011 or 12.
Right.
When, you know, the iPhone came out in 2007.
2007, yep.
And I didn't get my first iPhone until 2013. This stuff takes 5-10 years and then it's there.
You're one of the biggest finance creators on a platform owned by Google. Is there any reason Meta over Google?
So I am buying Google right now, actually, as well. You know, Google and Meta have a lot of the same things going on for them. The only issue I see with Google is they just got into problems with the government recently, where the government's starting to look into them and take them more serious. So Meta's had to deal with that for years. Google's just starting to have to deal with that. So I think that's going to be a hang up on Google stock for potentially several years. And it'll probably make it command a lower forward P, trailing P, price to sales, everything for at least the next few years. But I think Google's is really appetizing, and it's hard to not see making money there over the next few years. I'd say that.
The chef.
What
was your initial thesis on this stock a year ago? And like, has it changed? Are you still bullish? How do you kind of think about this company?
Yeah. So the chef has had some interesting things happen. So one, it was experiencing rapid growth, right?
Yeah.
And in a time period where access to capital was very cheap. And, you know, it was just about growing the revenue. But obviously that environment's completely changed.
Yep.
So a stock like the chef got thrown out with everything else, right? Like people want no piece of a money-losing company.
SoFi,
all of them got thrown out. So it's had to go through that. Now, in terms of chef, if people are thinking like, how's a chef turn around in terms of its stock price? They've got to show over the next year, margins growing, cash flow growing, net income growing. So, you know, the revenue story, SKU expansion, people only going to care about that so much. And that was my big thing about this year. It's like, I just want to see them get into more stores, you know, continue to have that revenue go up. And then 2023 and after, we can worry about profitability and margins. But people want to see margins and profitability right now. So, you know, it's a process that has to work itself out. It's not going to happen overnight, though.
And the macro thesis is you see the world becoming more vegan, and this is one of the companies you see fitting into that thesis playing out. Yeah,
definitely more plant-based over the next, 10, 20 years. I think we're shifting that way. And that's another thing, like people think like tomorrow, everybody's going to, be plant-based. It's like, it's not happening. It's a process that takes time. And I think the chef is growing into become a food giant. And when it comes to those food giants, man, I mean, the amount of food companies that become 5, 10, 15, $20 billion companies, it's not like there's just one of them. There's a lot of them.
And their market cap is under $1 billion right now?
Oh, it's like $400 million right now.
Okay.
Like $400 million. So, and I see them becoming a multi-billion dollar, market cap over the coming years. But they're going to have to get their margins and profitability to that place to justify that over the coming years.
And you saw this with another food company called Monster, right?
Yeah. Monster, which obviously is exclusive drinks, but Monster really got on my radar back when I was working at QT in like 2010, 2011. And, I'd work in the morning, 4 a.m., 5 a.m., coming off the overnight shift. And I'd see all these landscapers and folks coming in, buying 2 Monsters, 4 Monsters every day. And I was like, this seems pretty good. And Yeah, and I got to capitalize on Monster. And
Did you drink Monster at the time?
No,
you tried the drink?
I never. No, because I don't like to over caffeinate like that. That's a lot of caffeine.
Yes.
And just for myself, I'm already usually too wired to be that much caffeine. But at the end of the day, if people want the product, they're going to buy the product.
Right.
And that's definitely what I saw there. And they grew into a drink giant.
All right.
And just massive company. Today, their market cap might be $50 billion, some insane number. So that's why I think the chef's going over the coming years, but it's a story that's going to take time. It has to play out. In Monster, there was some ridiculous upside and downside moves in very short amount of time,
right?
Where that stock would double up, triple up in a matter of months, and then would go down 50%, So
do you think that's also part of your investing philosophy of seeing it in person? Kind of same thing with Tesla, same thing with Monster. Like you went to Target, you see tattoo, like you actually seeing it.
Yes.
And that plays a role.
It gives I think it gives you confidence. Seeing it in the real world, because sometimes if you don't see it, you could almost start to distrust it. And so, and I'm sure we'll talk about Palantir, but the hard thing with that is people aren't like seeing it. Like I can go to the chef, I can see it in the store. I could be like, oh, that product was there yesterday. Now it's sold out.
Right.
Or with a Monster or something like that, or an Elf or an Honest, I can actually see the products there and like, oh, somebody just bought that. That's cool.
With some unique level of DD that a lot of people don't do. Right?
Yeah. And in tough times, I feel like it's even more necessary. And there's a great money manager, one of the best of all time. I'm trying to remember, who was it? Oh, man.
Peter Lynch.
Yes, Peter Lynch. He was talking about Dunkin' Donuts. Well done. He was talking about Dunkin' Donuts, and this is like 100 years ago. He held Dunkin' Donuts stock, and Dunkin' Donuts stock just kept going down. He's like, I would go to Dunkin' Donuts, and I would just, go get a donut or a coffee or whatever, and I'd see all the people coming in, and it just gave me confidence that like this is going to work out over time.
Right.
And in the tough markets, especially, I think gives you more confidence. So meaningful.
All right. Star of the show, Palantir. Last time we interviewed you, which was awesome, this is like March, you came onto our Palantir Weekly podcast and you were like, guys, I just don't get it. Like, it's cool. I think the valuation's amazing, but I just don't know what the hell this is. I'm not buying it. Since then till like 6 months later, what has changed? What have you kind of thought about when it comes to Palantir?
Product demos on their YouTube page helped me immensely in just understanding the product that the company has and why this can be impactful for other companies and why somebody should use their software. I think that was the biggest thing that kind of helped finish it for me. And then I think also the valuation coming down so much, $7 and $14 billion market cap or so. Yeah. With $2 billion plus of cash and no debt. Okay. The risk reward is just there for me. It's like, I don't,
especially you're starting your position at $7 or $8 or whatever.
Yeah.
A lot Palantir people are at 25. Because that's just how it was.
No, exactly. And that's the thing that's tough with stocks is it's like one person could make a fortune on a stock because they got in at the right price. The other person's like, maybe in 5 years I'll make a fortune on this stock. Right. It's like no different than the chef. If the chef works out and goes to 15 over the coming years, if somebody buys it at 5, they're happy. My cost basis might be $13, $15. So I might just barely be getting to break even at that point. Right. Same thing with the Palantir, right? So yeah, I think the product demos helped in a meaningful way. Valuation coming down in a meaningful way. Listen to more conference calls. Understanding Snowflake a little better in kind of their opportunity. And the most underrated number in the last earnings that I thought just a lot of people didn't pay attention to was U.S. commercial.
Yeah.
And everybody dogged that earnings. Like if Palantir put up the worst quarter in the world. If I recall, U.S. commercial grew 120%.
Yep.
Which I don't think there's another software company out there that could grow U.S. commercial 120%. That's a phenomenal number. Everybody got so caught up on the top line number just because of government was hurt.
Yes.
In the short term. And it's like, that's just part of the story.
Yeah.
So, the reason I'm in Palantir is not really because of the government side. That's a cool cherry on top. For me, it's about the U.S. commercial and hopefully over time, massive amounts of big companies using Palantir software for their companies. And, we'll see how they adapt their business model over time. Maybe they go more AWS type route in terms of
which is
free
their
trial.
Vision,
Yeah. And you guys have spoke about this with, I know on your I don't want to call it the podcast, but you do it with the other gentlemen. I watch a lot of your guys' episodes and you talk about, hey, what if they just made it free at first? Or, and then kind of you graduated up the ranks.
Right.
Which I think is a whole other level that they might potentially go down over time. So
how do you feel about Alex Karp?
Yeah, Alex Karp, my opinion hasn't really changed about him. I've always felt like he's, talks too much philosophy and not enough about the stock, you know, and I think people really want to hear him talk about the stock. And, you know, if he's on for a 15-minute interview, you got maybe a minute of the stock and 14 minutes of like, you know, what's going on in the world, geopolitical type stuff, right? So I think that's just him. And you just have to kind of deal with that. I think he also sells really good, you know, subliminally. And I don't think a lot of people even pick up on that. You know, when he's talking about Palantir's helping save lives, when he's talking about, you know, it's helping small countries fight off big countries and things like that, you know, it's really powerful on a subliminal level if you're a Fortune 500 CEO and you're like, man, if this company's data and what they're doing is helping, you know, a country fight a war, oh gosh, you know, it could probably potentially help my business. I should at least take it serious, which for Palantir, that's all you can ask for, is for folks to take you serious and consider using your product or seeing about it and things like that.
You said you're not in it too much for the government, but the CEO Karp obviously quite literally is always talking about the saving of Western values and democratic norms and the fragility of democracy. Does any of that stuff mean anything to you when you hear him say that stuff? Is it just like, all right, it's whatever, but like stock-based compensation, I want to hear about that?
You know, I think it's important subjects. I think he just probably talks about it too much, to be honest. But like I said, you're going to have faults with every CEO, and you know, things that you're like, oh, can they just talk about this more? I think at least Karp has to understand on earnings calls, dude, throw all this philosophical stuff out the window. Just focus on the stock. If you want to go on CNBC and talk and do a 30-minute interview and talk about big picture stuff and what's going on in the world, do that. But on earnings call, you know, if you find yourself going that way, Karp, bring it back, man. Bring it back and focus on the stock, what's going on with the business model, because that's what people want to hear about on an earnings call. You know, we already heard your big philosophy stuff many times.
It's so divided in the community because it's like people like me love the philosophy stuff because I took philosophy in college and high school. I love it. And then there's other people that are just like, okay, I just want to know about the stock. And he tries to intermingle them, but a lot of times it leans more towards philosophy because he has a PhD in philosophy. And he's trusting people will love the company because of the philosophy, when in reality, a lot of people might not. You know?
Well, I mean, you're so into the Palantir community. I would love to hear from your perspective on what you see from most people in regards to that.
There is a core group of people that love it. Like, so for me, CodeStrap, shout out to him. He understands a lot about the concepts of freedom and democracy, and we're able to really talk about that stuff. And he loves Palantir because it forces us to have these discussions. But I would say the far majority of people just want to hear about the stock, and the far majority of people just want to hear about the business. I do think a lot of people bought into it because of his crazy vision, but now because the stock has been plummeted, they want to hear about how they're going to get their money back. And so, but I think Karp is Karp, and he doesn't care. And he believes that if you believe in Palantir, give us 5 years. And
you know what? That's the thing that bothers me. Because people now, because the stock's down big, all of a sudden want him to change this. And I'm like, this is the same Karp from a year ago. He didn't change. I think it's just people, maybe at that time, stock was doing fine. They were looking at it with, I don't know, what do they say, rose-colored glasses or whatever. And now all of a sudden stock's down big and they're like, oh, I want Karp to change. It's like, dude, that's just who he is. So, you know, from that perspective. But by the way, I want to speak on the Palantir community for a second. I haven't seen as intelligent of a community build around a stock since Tesla in regards to Palantir. I've been extremely impressed with the community. I think that the amount of high-level thinkers there is unparalleled, other than when I saw it with Tesla back in the day. And that's one of the other reasons that's given me a lot of conviction with Palantir. And just one of many reasons that gave me conviction with Tesla back in the day was I'm like, man, there's a lot of freaking really smart people that are thinking about this stock. And
it was my initial thing too, because I started interviewing Sean from InvestLive, you know him, and Sachin and Chris and all these, and CodeStrap. There's so many different people, and I got the technical people, I got the people who work in data and analytics sales every day. I've got the more philosophical, and I'm getting all this insight, and I'm like, everyone's thinking about the stock, and either we're all dead wrong or we all collectively crowdsourced information to hopefully have somewhat of a return on this company. And a lot of communities on YouTube don't have. A lot of stocks don't have that community. I mean, SoFi has a nice community, Tesla, obviously, but it's hard to find other communities.
It really is. And, you know, with the funny thing with Tesla, and I'll say a little different than Palantir, is Tesla had a lot of smart short sellers as well. And I mean, obviously they lost a fortune, so they might not be so smart after all. But I mean, you know, there's Michael Burry and all those folks shorted that stock. And it was like, it's just amazing how many intellectual people it collected on both sides of it, from the Ron Barons to, you know, the
Gordon
Burries
Johnsons.
and, yes, yeah, and the, you know, Jim Chanos was obviously playing on the other side. And, you know, I haven't really seen that on Palantir from the short side.
Right.
I just seen a really, in my opinion, intelligent community on the long side. So Palantir just might not be as interesting of a short, because you're kind of looking at it as a short. And it's like, well, they're not going out of business. With Tesla, I think that was the thing that attracted people, the shorts, was, oh my gosh, they're losing so much money. Look at how bad their cash flows are. With Palantir, it's like, okay, they got the stock-based compensation. Their market cap's like 14 billion. They got 2 billion in cash, no debt. You know, they're growing, like, and they're a SaaS business. So over time, it's going to be a straight profit machine. What do you got there? So I think that's why it hasn't really attracted the shorts as much as Tesla did back in the day.
How much does Palantir have the portfolio? Is it a
very small
very
amount?
Small still?
Yeah, I probably have, gosh, I don't know. Maybe I have like 20 or 30K in Palantir. Yeah. So, but I want to build it. Man, it might be a little bit more than that, but I want to build it to like 100. I would love to build it to like 100K position, and I should have at least the rest of this year to do it.
Any thoughts on Thiel in Palantir's vision, 0 to 1? Any conviction that allowed you, as he's the co-founder of it?
No, actually, that's 0% of the reasons why I'm in it. And I know you guys have spoken about that book a lot. I would love to just hear you for a second. Like, what about that book makes it so special? Because I've heard you guys speak about it several times.
It's the one line he had which framed the entire book and really inspired a generation of like thoughts when it comes to startups. And obviously I'm building a startup, so it's influential to me, which is the concept of competition being for losers. So the idea is, like, Google search eliminated all their competition because they created the best search engine in the world. And contrary to what the government and everyone thinks, monopolies are good because it means you have this differentiated advantage that the rest of the world can't catch up to. Whereas an airline, which is the example he uses, has a lot of competition, Southwest, United, and as a result of all that competition, it shrinks your margins and it gives you a shitty airplane business where you're going to fill up seats, but there's not going to be that profitable. So not having competition actually allows you to monopolize an industry. Now, the problem is, how do you build a product that is so unique and differentiated, like Google's search algorithm, that it beats Yahoo, that it beats Ask.com, and it goes from 0 to 1? And it eliminates all the competition. And so what the thesis is on Palantir is they have a differentiated data analytics technology that uses machine learning, AI at such a unique level that the Snowflakes of the world, the Databricks of the world aren't necessarily doing that, which is why they could go from 0 to 1, which means an exponential return if they have that differentiated of a technology. The problem is their sales sucks right now. Yeah. And they can't get the world to understand that technology. As per their earnings, they're not growing exponentially. And so if that happens, it's a 0 to 1 story and their tech goes crazy and this is a great return. If it doesn't, then it doesn't.
Yeah. And, you know, for the people that, you know, trip off the short-term earnings, which once again, that was really held back by government in Europe, right? Yeah. Remember, I remember, oh gosh, what quarter was it? Tesla put up this one quarter, I think it was in 2019. And it was so trash, man. They grew.
I think it was Q3 because the stock dropped to 170 and I started buying it.
Yeah.
And there was a report that said it's going at $10.
Yeah.
Specifically $10. This is by Morgan Stanley.
Yeah. Yeah. And
because that was May, I started buying it in 2019.
Yeah.
I sold it in October. So
dang. Okay. But it happens. Yeah, I know a lot of people. That's other. You know, man, I'm getting off on too many different subjects, but I think people can learn from Tesla because a lot of people took profits way too soon. Because they were like, oh my gosh, it went up 50%. It doubled. I'm out. You know, and they missed the 1,000%. They missed the 2,000%, unfortunately.
Yep.
So, which is where you get the life-changing money. It's the 50% is like, okay, I'm doing well for myself. The 2,000 is like life-changing, right? Yeah. Right. So, or you know, just do some big stuff. But yeah, in Palantir, I'm trying to remember. Oh yeah, so Tesla put up this garbage quarter. Revenue on a quarter over quarter basis was down billions of dollars. I remember, and people freaked out.
Which means they were not growing quarter over quarter.
And I just looked at it and I'm like, dude, the product is freaking great. People are going to come to this. Don't worry about it. And obviously things worked out over time. At the end of the day, if you got a great product, it's going to work out. You know,
and that's what Karp thinks. He thinks the product they spent 18 years developing is so good, and obviously it's being used in Ukraine. They publicly admitted it, that should be enough to sell it. The problem is Tesla's a consumer product where the product can sell itself. Software never sells itself.
It's true, yeah.
Like it's networking, B2B, politics, getting to the C-suite executives. Yep. So I think that's the thing the community is struggling with is like, we really do believe through product demos and talking to technical people, the product is differentiated. Can they sell it? That's the hard part, and we'll figure that out.
By the way, I would love to ask you a question here.
Yes.
Who do you view as more of a, if you do view either as competition, who's more competition? Is it Databricks or is it Snowflake, in your opinion, for Palantir?
I would say it might not be neither. It might be Microsoft, just because they can replicate the business intelligence Palantir offers, maybe even at 30% of the quality, and then just have the distribution because they have all the networking. Now, in general, Snowflake is more sort of data storage and situating the data, not analytically explaining the data at the type of level Palantir is. They can do something like that, but not at Palantir's level.
Yeah.
So Databricks, I think, would be more direct competition. I think that's what CodeStrap has talked about as well.
Okay.
But Microsoft is like that canary in the coal mine that might actually just say, hey, here's our new Palantir-esque product. You guys already buy Teams from us. We'll give you this on top of it for like 20% off. Why would you pay Palantir $2 million for this? Like pay us $200,000. And so I guess we'll see what happens from there.
Yeah, I know that's always the tough part.
Karp has talked about Snowflake offering a product. He literally said the words that will be gone in like 5 to 6 years, because it's this out of the box, literally software as a service that you just set up and then it's boom. Yeah. He's talked about building a product that will last decades because the tech is that differentiated. The question is, if no one knows that the tech exists, do you make money off of it? And so that's what we're struggling with as a community right now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Crypto and NFTs.
Oh, crypto and NFTs.
Big collapse since last year.
Yeah.
One of your friends, Andre, very excited about it. You were never excited about crypto. This is something you got right.
I mean, first off, I think crypto is going to be a much bigger thing in 10 years than it is today. I don't think that's going anywhere. I think, crypto, the way I looked at it is very similar to what happened in the tech bubble, where, people were very excited about tech stocks and the NASDAQ crashed. I don't remember if it was 60, 70, 80%, whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I think kind of crypto represented last year, where it's like people got a little too excited about it too soon. I think Ethereum could be huge. I think obviously Bitcoin, it's going to be there, right? And I think there's going to be other projects that become massive things, but it takes time.
Yes.
Everybody wanted this to happen overnight. And my whole thing I went back to is I'm like, why should this be valued at $100 billion? This thing valued at $1 trillion. Like, is it really that impactful today? And it's like, no, it's not. 10 years, it might be a different story, right? NFTs, I can definitely see a purpose for NFTs. A lot of people just got attracted by like trying to make quick money. I think I saw something from Logan Paul posted recently. He put like 623,000 in something. And it's worth like $10 today or something like that. Yeah. So, but in terms of like NFTs, I can see uses for that in the future. A lot of different use cases.
So you're not bearish crypto and NFTs. No. You never thought of including it as a major part of the portfolio because you never saw the use case.
In terms of me, it was all about valuation.
Right.
And it's like, why does this NFT deserve to trade at $250,000 or $100K? Why does this crypto deserve to trade at market cap? So that's where it came back to like valuations and how do you value these things, right? Because it's a new asset class. We know how to value a stock. And if a stock is trading at some crazy metric, we can be like, this is why it's overvalued. Crypto, it's like, you could say Bitcoin's overvalued at $1 trillion. You could also say it at $100 billion. You could also say it at 10 billion, at 1 billion. It's a whole new way of trying to figure out what is the true value of this. And where is it undervalued, overvalued, or fairly valued at? So yeah, but I'm if you had to ask me, I'm bullish on those things long term. I think it's just going to take time to play out. People got to give it time, man.
And someone like you that really analyzes the 10Ks and the conference calls, that's content you need to make a decision. Whereas with crypto, there's none of that.
Yeah, there's none of that. You're just gonna have to see it in the real world play out and be like, this is more meaningful. And look I just did this transaction with Bitcoin. Let's say, for instance, if we're gonna focus on that, and I just paid this company with that and this company with that. So a strip club in Vegas here just started taking Bitcoin recently.
Really?
So yeah, maybe that's the growth vector, man. The strip clubs taking that Bitcoin. So
that may be the growth vector. Cathie Wood ARK.
Oh.
What are your thoughts? So Zoom, she says 70 billion in revenue 2026. Roku, she says the next biggest thing. Coinbase, Block. She says deflation is coming in the next 6 months. She said that yesterday on CNBC. You might have seen that. Any thoughts on her as an investor, what she's doing, and where ARK is going?
Yeah, I mean, there's some Cathie Wood stocks I like, some I really don't like. It's really a case-by-case basis. I think she should be, I was looking yesterday, Shopify is her 14th biggest position. Yep. I think she should make it a top 5 position over the next, 6 months, in my personal opinion. Obviously, we see eye to eye on Tesla. Zoom, I'm trying to figure out, is it just a one-trick pony? Because it still seems like they're trying to become more than that, but it seems like just a one-trick pony. Roku, I've never seen it. So, but in terms of Cathie Wood, I think I really appreciate and respect her macroeconomic thoughts.
Yes.
That's what, stocks, it's like, yeah, I like this one, I don't like this one. Macroeconomics, I really like a lot of her opinions, and I really respect a lot of her opinions. And I think I think she's caught a lot of disrespect over the past year, obviously because the stocks have gone down so much and the ARK fund has gone down. But I think people should absolutely respect her, at least for her macro thoughts, because she has a lot of good ones, in my opinion.
Do you think she's also right on disruptive innovation in tech, but she was just way too early in 2020, the height of the bubble? But like betting against innovation doesn't seem to make sense.
No, it doesn't. I think the main question with her is she betting on the right
innovation stocks? Right. I think that's always what it comes down to.
Yeah. And selling out of something like a Palantir, and it's like, man, we said, really, you're going to sell that stock and hold these other stocks that are they really, Roku, right? Yeah, are they really innovative like that? Like, come on, man. Right. So I think that's where we might have disagreements on. So,
Elon Musk is maybe buying Twitter, maybe not. You recently came on Twitter. What are your thoughts on Twitter as a platform? And after using it for the past couple months, do you see why Elon would want to buy it?
Yeah, I still think he could have probably just spent the money on building it and probably done it better. And the problem with Twitter is it's got a bad kind of rep for a while because of all the politics stuff. And it seems like there's one political side that is outweighed massively, at least it seems like on that platform, right? So I think that's an issue, but I think there's a lot of good information on Twitter, and I think there's a lot of bright minds on there, and I'm learning to respect it more than I used to.
Why didn't you use it before?
Because of the bad rep, and I'd go on there and it'd just be like political crap and stuff like that, and I'm just like, I don't even care about politics. Like, I don't want to be dragged into all this stuff, and I'd go on, and it's like the Trump stuff was always like trending back when I even tried to give it a chance. And I'm like, my gosh, man, it was like Trump this, Trump that. And I was like, it's just not a platform I'm interested in, right? I will say the finance niche is building out pretty nice actually on Twitter. I've been impressed. So,
are you a political person in general? Do you just not like during the election season, you're like, all right, I'll vote for someone, but do you not obsess over?
Yeah, I've never voted in my life.
Wow.
No, so never even registered to vote.
So you just don't care. You care about money.
Yeah. But for me, I wouldn't say anybody should ever do what I do. Right. I think you should vote. I think you should look into the candidates and things like that. For me, I've never been interested in it.
Yeah.
And I've also made a decision to not get into it because of my platform. And I know I'm the type of person that will start pushing agendas against my audience. And I don't want to be that guy who's telling people go vote Dem or go vote Republican or go vote for this candidate and not this candidate. And I know once I cross that line, that's a line that's hard to get back on the other side. And so I've just I'm staying out of it. I'm a stock guy. I'll talk about that. And then I can just talk even on either side. Right. And I'm not invest in it because I'm like, I want you guys to go vote for this person.
I actually really respect that because like when I was in high school, I was very, very political. In fact, I'll admit, I was like, I'm voting for Bernie Sanders in high school. So I was like, no, we got to eat the rich and all that. And then you get older, you go to business school first, and you're like, I actually want to become the rich. I don't want to be the rich. And so I've changed my mind as well, man. I'm like, I don't give a shit about politics. Like I care about making money, and whoever is in office is in an office.
Yeah.
And I will deal with whatever regulations they pass, and we'll keep it going. And I think a lot of people don't want to admit that because it seems like you're an indifferent psychopath. When in reality, there's not much you can do about that world. Especially when Nancy Pelosi is making trades profitably. It's like, well, what do we do about them? Like, that's their world. I want to make my trades.
No, and it also can lead to, I've seen a lot of people, it leads to a little bit of an unhappy life.
Yes.
Because they get so tied into it. And I experienced that in the private stock group in the Discord chat where some people get so tied into that presidential election, the last one we had, right? And so on one side or the other. And if their candidate's not in office, they feel like everything's bad. And if their candidate's in office, then they feel like everything's perfect. And it's like, that's not the way the world works, man.
No, it's not.
But that's just an outlook, and it is what it is. So
yeah, the older I get, the more I feel like politics is stupid because CNN is their thing, Fox is their thing. I'm like, I want my thing.
Well, and that sucks because it's become so divided that you have like this network only talks pro about this. And they only talk negative about this. And that's unfortunate that we're at that stage in America where people feel like they got to go to one side. And then even social platforms are starting to get like that. Like one social platform is like all the way over here. This other social platform's all the way over here. And it's like, geez, man, we've gotten to that place now at this point. That's unfortunate. But.
Speaking about social platforms, we touched on this a little bit earlier, but I want to ask a very specific question. Google's senior vice president said 40% of teens are using Instagram and TikTok for search over YouTube or Google search. Do you think TikTok can ever kill YouTube? Forget the China stuff. Like, do you think the very nature of the fast-paced stuff can get rid of people wanting to consume long-form thumbnail titles?
Jesus, I hope not.
So this house, like,
I watched this movie. I don't watch a lot of movies, but I watched this movie called Elvis recently that was on HBO Max, and I was looking forward to it. I thought it was going to be a good movie, and this movie was filmed. And I go to my wife, I'm like, is this how they film movies now? It was so TikTokified. They were doing cuts literally every second. Cut. And I was like, this is horrible experience.
Right.
And I was like, oh my gosh, is this how people actually want content? So I hope not. I think there's always going to be a need for long form content. And so the way I look at it is, yeah, if you're short form and that's your approach, TikTok's the way, right?
Right.
But in terms of long form, if I want to hear somebody talk about the market for 30 minutes, I'm not going on TikTok for that, right? I'm going to go to one platform in the world, and that's YouTube.
Right.
So
especially in the finance niche, the people who have if we watch CNBC all day, we're watching talking heads. There's not that many cuts.
Yeah.
So I think our demographic maybe has the patience to just sit and look at someone.
Yeah.
But you've reacted to videos where you're staring at something for an hour.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. 100%.
You have the patience to just listen.
Yep. Yeah. And so we're dealing with different, I guess you can say, different people and different folks. And even in the finance niche, different people watch different people. That sounds weird, but like Graham's audience is different than my audience. Yeah. Andre's audience is different than mine. Kevin and I have a little bit of a similar audience. But those guys, it's different type of videos. It's more cuts. It's boom, boom, versus like Kevin and I will just
sit and talk.
Yeah. And here's our opinion on da. So, I mean, I think there's always going to be a need for that sort of thing. And if TikTok ever goes that route, it might be difficult. The thing that YouTube's done great is incentivize creators.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the things that got me on the platform back in 2016 was just the fact that you could sign up and start making money. And it was like, cool. Yeah. Even if it was like $1.
Yeah.
It was like, wow, cool. I made $1. I put out a video. It's just cool. And you don't get that with these other social platforms. They don't understand to take care of the creator as much as YouTube does. YouTube understands that. And I know they're not perfect, but they understand it way better than Meta does. They understand it way better than Amazon does with Twitch. Yeah. And they understand it way better than TikTok. I spoke to somebody recently, I'm not going to mention their name, but they were telling me they've gotten, hundreds of millions of views on TikTok. I won't mention the specific number. And she told me that she's made a total of $2,000 from hundreds of millions of views. So obviously she can do sponsored posts and things like that and make money that way. But I mean, it's just incredible because hundreds of millions of views on YouTube would be like so much money. You can't even imagine it. Like what? Like millions.
I think also a lot of those views at the end of the day aren't real because on YouTube, when you pick a video, someone has to actively see it in a sea of other videos and click it. And earning that click is so incredibly difficult. Yeah. Whereas TikTok, it's served to you, which is great. You might keep my attention, but if it's served to me, did I really want to watch it?
Yep. And exactly.
So,
yeah, and somebody could swipe and it's probably already counted as a view.
As a view.
I think they've pumped their views big time.
100%. I would agree with that. Speaking of me, Kevin, what do you think about his new startup?
I think, with Kevin, he's a hard worker. I don't think anybody should underestimate him in terms of his work ethic. And another thing I'll say is obviously the startups in the real estate space. And I got to say, there's no one I've ever met in life that I think I have more respect for in the real estate industry. I've been with him in so many houses and like the littlest detail that like 0.0000001% of like the world would even realize this. He's like on it. Like the other night we were at some Airbnb. Well, it's like a week or two ago, and there was a countertop there. And he's like, "Oh, I think that's foil." And he starts looking at it, and like they had foiled the countertop. It was like just a ghetto, and it fooled me. I thought it was like a real legit countertop, and like these little details.
He understands.
I remember when he came to one of my houses years ago, and he went upstairs and he's like, "Oh, that's nice. You got the carpet double padded. I see." It's just like crazy details. So, I think anything in I have all the respect for him when it comes to anything real estate. And I wouldn't be surprised if he makes a success. I don't know how big of a success it will be or if it will be or won't be, but I wouldn't bet against him if it's something in real estate area. So
right. No, I would agree with that as well. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be big or lose, but it's hard to bet against someone who's worked so hard to build an audience and build a following. Even like you, if you started something, it's hard to bet against you. Yeah. Because if you're doing something in your niche and you've had the work ethic and you've shown to people you have the work ethic, you can raise $17 million.
Yeah.
People actually care.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Why did Millennial Money break up? Not break up. Why did it stop? Why did the podcast stop?
Yeah, in terms of breakup, it's because we all had a big fight one night. No, I'm just kidding. Ice cream was
texted
thrown.
My girl, and I didn't like what he said.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just gosh, man.
I know it's because you can't do it in person and that hurts it a lot as well.
Yeah. And, in terms of people's time, that's the thing. It's tough. And when it's several different, very successful people, everybody has to dedicate the time.
Yep.
And sometimes, it's like, is somebody getting a valuable ROI on that?
100%.
I really enjoyed it. I always loved doing it, but I can understand why other people kind of be like, this is taking this much time. I hardly make any money from this.
Yep.
And if I spent this time doing something else, I could make a lot more than what I'm making here. So I understand kind of that perspective, but I always really enjoyed it. I think it's fun to talk with people's opinions and things like that. I love doing that. So, but yeah, nothing serious. It was just like time and ROI and things like that. Yeah.
All right, last question for you. We're approaching the hour. Thank you for giving us an hour of your life. It really means the world. How much do you need to stop? How much do you need to stop? And I guess the follow-up to that is there anything big you're planning after videos or with videos on YouTube?
Can you explain that a little more? Because I just want to make sure I fully understand.
So Breaking Bad, Walter White's at 737,000 and I'm done.
Oh, okay.
Is there a number in your head where you're like, if I get this much, I'm just going to go on a beach forever and not worry about content or anything?
Yeah, in terms of me, I just do whatever I'm kind of enjoying in life. And I've always taken that approach. So getting out of high school, I went to community college, got super motivated to get my money up and start investing. So I did that till 2014 and I burnt out.
Yes.
I left Quick Trip and I didn't do anything for a year. I mean, anything other than obviously I was still doing stocks and stuff like that. But I didn't do any work. I didn't have any income for over a year. And then starting in 2016, I went hard again. And I've been going, I've been working my butt off, since then. And so I just kind of go with life. Like if next year I'm like, I don't really feel like putting in the work, I just won't do it. So I just kind of take that approach. And I use these time periods of being super motivated to really get after it. And I viewed this year, 2022, as a year I just got to get after it and really, really work my tail off. So
you like the process of working, and if as soon as you stop liking it, you stop.
Yeah, exactly. And as long as you're in the financial position to do that, you can do it. And that's the beautiful thing about stock market investing, saving, investing, because once you get up to that level, if you want to, take a year off, you can do it, or 2 years or 10 years or whatever it is, right? Until you find your next thing you want to go after. So that's just kind of how I approach it.
Now, this is the actual last question because it just came to my head. My parents could have made a lot of money in stocks in 2010 because I know they had disposable income if they had just known about the stock market. They knew nothing. I got them their first Robinhood account to learn about the stock. So I kind of always think it's my obligation to learn about it and teach them and get more financial literacy there. You've made money off the market. You've got kids that are relatively young. Are you instilling some of those financial literacy values, like talking to them about forward PE ratios? Do you feel they care about it right now?
Yeah, my kids are fairly young right now. So I'm sure over time, but I mean, the biggest thing with my kids is I don't want to force them to do anything they might not be interested in too passionately about. Obviously, I'm going to give them the guiding principles of the overarching things. But in terms of if and I have 3 children, if they're not interested in the stock market, it is what it is. It's not like I'm like, you got to like this. But if they want to go that route, then I'm more than happy to teach them all those things. I'm just not going to make them go down that route, I guess you can say. So you got to let, kids live their own lives, I guess you can say. So.
Right. And if they're being a little rebellious one night and they don't want to come downstairs and talk to you, they can just put up your YouTube video in their room and they can get all the information they need to do what they got to do. Jeremy, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Awesome. Welcome
Absolutely.
to your house. It's amazing.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Thank you for doing this. Hope you guys enjoyed Jeremy interview.
Don't forget to smash and subscribe.